Cullum, pleased to meet you.
Pleased to meet you.
How did you get involved in BBC Introducing today?
I was aware of it last year. Watched all the stuff on the web. It was really interesting, to hear people like Gary Barlow and Mark Ronson, all these people talking about their process. And I met someone from BBC Introducing. They asked me if I would be interested in doing something as well, and I was excited and quite honoured to be asked, really, because this kind of thing is exactly the kind of thing I would have liked to have gone to as a younger musician, and to be honest, would still go to now. So I'm going to be around all day listening to everyone else's things as well.
Superb. And when somebody comes up and asks you for a bit of advice, what can I do to get that foot in the door? What are you going to say?
Well, I think you have to ask a different question. I think if you're asking how to get your foot in the door, it's all got to start with your music. That's the kind of the beginning and the end point, because even once you get your foot in the door, you quickly realise that's once the kind of the shock of the new has gone, once the sheen of newness has left you, a lot of people, they disappear, and staying there means you've got to be focused on your music. So that's the first thing. The second thing is getting out there and meeting people and playing and getting your work into people's hands, and just making sure you've got the chops and the tools for that moment. When you do get that moment where you get to play in front of someone who can take you to the next level, make sure you're ready, and that means you've got to be always ready. Because once you get those opportunities, if you stack it, if it happens to you too, a lot of the things, the good things that have happened to me, I'm glad happened to me a bit later, because it meant that I could take, I could take what I've learned from 10 years of playing in front of two people with PAs that didn't work, and use it to get somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, when did your big break come?
The big break is a complete. It doesn't exist. The big break. It's many little breaks amounting to a big break. Yeah. So, I was signed to a small record label first. That felt like a big break. Then I started getting gigs at clubs I had wanted to play in. I thought I'd get to play in 10 years from that point. I got a development deal with a rock band I was working with, a publishing development deal. We went on tour with Paul Weller, and we did support slots for Oasis. I was just a sideman at this point. I was also doing jazz at the same time. Then I got bought from my little record label by Universal, and my first album came out on Universal, and then a lot of things kind of rolled onto each other.
You're a multi-instrumentalist as well. I mean, that's helped you?
It has. I think playing other instruments just helps you stay fresh, because it's interesting to watch. When you hear someone like John Lennon or Paul McCartney, I think John Lennon says, "Give me a tuba and I'll give you a song out of it." And I think sometimes too much knowledge about something can be a bit of a prison. So occasionally behind the piano, I find like I've got nowhere else to go, which of course is not true, because you can go anywhere on a piano. But I'll pick up the guitar, which I'm not as proficient on the guitar, but it'll help me write differently. Sometimes I'll get out an MPC, a drum machine, which I assume a lot of people would not expect that I would know how to use or would use, but I use things like that a lot, drum machines and things, just to inspire me in different ways. Bass guitar, sit behind the drums, all sorts.
I mean, you've done a lot of cover versions, Kanye West, White Stripes, Massive Attack, Rihanna, Radiohead, the list goes on. What have you got your eye on now in the future?
Well, I'm working on a new album at the moment. What I tend to do when I'm writing an album is that I focus on the original songs first. So at the moment I'm just focusing on 10 really good, I think are great, original songs, and then more towards the end of the process I'll start to think about what I might want to cover. Yeah. But I mean, that changes every week. I've been playing what I played last week, Countdown, the Beyonce song from a new record, which I love. Yeah.
And the new album. So has it got a direction at the moment? Do you know where you're going with it?
It's more song based, I think. There's still a lot of improvisation on it. There's still kind of jazz elements to it, but I think now's my opportunity to really try and focus on my own songwriting, because I think that's the area where I feel like I've made the most progress in the last couple of years. So at the moment it's more based around my songs, and I think last album I went for diversity, like there's every type of style kind of within 10 or 12 tracks. This is a bit more, bit less stylistically diverse. That sounds less exciting, but actually I think it's a bit more focused. Yeah.
Cool. And what's a favourite song you've ever written? Your own?
There's two, I think, because they kind of exist. I don't remember writing them, and they seem to exist kind of outside of me, which I really like. One was one of the first songs that I kind of wrote that ended up on an album, which is called All at Sea, which is from my album 20 Something, which was the one that enabled me to tour America for 2 years as well, because that was I've never had a radio hit here in England, but in America that was like a proper full-on radio hit. So right after 20 Something broke here, I went to America and toured colleges and ended up doing really big venues just off the back of one song, you know. So I had a completely different career in America to the one I had here, which is more from doing Michael Parkinson's show and the kind of jazz thing. So it was really interesting watching how you can break in different ways in different countries. There's that, and also a song I wrote on my last album called I Think I Love, which I tried to write a song that could have been written by George Gershwin in the 30s, but with a kind of more modern lyric, and it does sound like that to me, and I just can't remember sitting down to write it. It just was in my head one day. Yeah. It's lovely when you don't have to sit there and chip away at it for 6 months, which is normally what it's like for me, to be honest.
Yeah. Has becoming a father, has that changed your sort of musical direction in any way?
It's changed more. It's changed more my the kind of logistics of my create. You know, previously I'd go to the studio whenever I felt like it. You know, night time, middle of the night. You know, early morning, late morning, whatever. Now, you know, my life has to be a lot more structured. Because we have a child and because we're looking after the child, and you know, my wife works, I work, so we have to work at different times.
Sure.
So it just means that as opposed to waiting for when I should go to the studio, it's like, right, I've got 4 hours, I've got to do something, and that's not something I've ever had to deal with before. So it's good in a lot of ways, actually. I think maybe that's partly to do with what's focused me a bit more. Does it make me more honest? I don't know. Well, we'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, no, superb. Well, thanks a lot for your time. Anything to say to Music News watchers?
Yeah, you know, I hope if they get to watch this BBC introducing thing, that they enjoy it and they get a lot out of it.
Superb. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks. Brilliant.